Hey y'all. Yeah, Tammy, you are here. You're here for the beginning of one for once. Hey Sarah. Oh, hey Liv. How are you, babe? Tia. Dream Pro. Listen, I'm dying from last night. So I was on a live last night, y'all, on Bree's channel for our discussion of My Soul to Keep by Tanana Reeve Dew. And we were up until like 3:30 this morning, and I had to be up by 7 to get to work. No, Josh, really, it genuinely cannot be another 5-hour night. I can't do can't. I can't do it. Shannon, I've never seen you in a live. Hey, 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 y'all. Hey, hey, hey. How is everyone? Is everyone doing okay? Got something going on with my little throat here. So before we get started, so I just kind of wanted to make this announcement on the live. Um, Lala, I am gonna start doing these lives, hopefully fingers crossed once a week. And my intentions in doing these lives is to not only do sprints, but to also help us have some productive conversations just about a variety of topics. I have not thought about the rest of the topics yet, but I just this is something that I wanted to do. So it'd be like let's chat and sprint is kind of like the theme that we're going with. And then every week go to be something else that we'll talk about. So today, well, yesterday when I was talking about it on Breeze Live, I was like, it was either going to be a discussion on reading diversely or booktube expectations. And everybody was like, let's do booktube expectations first, which is cool. So what we'll do is we'll chat for 30 minutes, and then after we chat, we'll sprint for 30, chat and sprint for 30. So kind of the same thing. Hey Deidre. So I guess what I wanted to start by doing this live is like asking you whether you are, doesn't matter if you're a creator or if you're a watcher, whatever end of the spectrum you fit on, what is one thing, um, what is one expectation? Let me reframe that. What is one expectation that you think the booktube community places on viewers and creators? Anything that comes to mind. It could be the expectation that you have to read a lot. It could be the expectation that you have to have um, certain type of shows, or you have to read certain type of books. So just kind of shout out into the void one thing that you feel like is an expectation in this community, and then we'll kind of just talk from there, um, and go from there, and we'll kind of share our thoughts. So don't be shy. Um, say what's on your heart and your soul. All right, so we got one from Hey Amber. Um, okay, so that you need fancy equipment to start a channel or that will keep your channel growing, which I think is a very, very common um it is a common feeling, so you're not alone. We actually had this discussion last night that people feel like you have to have the latest like DSLR camera. But believe it or not, a lot of people do film on their phones. And I think, in my opinion, I think lighting really is more so the thing about it. I It's so unfortunate that we do have this expectation that you need fancy equipment because I mean, realistically, everybody can't afford it. Like, I'm still literally paying for my camera today, and I got that camera a while ago. So you don't need fancy equipment. I personally always tell people, like, if you want to start with what you have. Like, don't feel like you have to play this keeping up with the Joneses because I feel like um I feel like it can be harmful to some people. Personally, that's the way that I feel. No, Lala, that's a good answer. I agree. I think that, and especially I know probably it's a different experience for you since you have a larger platform. But yeah, and it is. It gets strange in some sense because you don't want to overshare, um, but you want to be personal. But then it's like you are a person that has a private life, and I always tell people too, like understand that what you see in front of the camera is not someone's full life, and they don't have to share everything with you. I think that creators are due privacy, even though we are sharing ourselves on the internet. Like I say, like, okay, I'm putting stuff out on the internet in terms of like talking about books and my field of librarianship, but I don't tell people where I work for a reason. I don't tell people where I live for a reason. There's things that go on in the background of my life that I don't actively share. And I think that sometimes that sense of boundaries between creator and watcher can sometimes get blurred. And I don't think that is always ill intention on anybody's side. It's just that I think sometimes we get so excited about each other that we forget that these are real people behind and in front of the camera. Um, and no one should be expected to share more than they're willing to share. Um, and it is. I could only imagine Lala on your end because I mean, even with my platform, I've had some strange encounters and I've had to like kind of draw boundaries with some people who they didn't mean anything bad about it. Like they weren't ill intentioned, but it was just understanding that there are some aspects of my life that I will not share with the public because that's me. That's my real life. Um, let's is that wait, hold on. Is that my uncle? Oh, no, that's not real life. See, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. Uncle Carrie, why are you on my YouTube channel? Go away. um, I still feel like that's an impression that a lot of people still get. I really do. I still feel like that's an impression. Yeah, I think too. I think that, and I feel like a lot of people critique that, whether you have like a mic or whether your camera is good. But sometimes I also feel like it's easy to critique when you're on the outside looking in, if that makes sense. And I can get that as a consumer, but this is not, you know, a major network television production. These people who are just kind of doing their hobbies and getting the equipment for YouTube in general is not a cheap process. And I do feel like sometimes it creates this pressure on people to get bigger and better equipment, which then puts them in a financial bind. I don't know. I that aspect of it really like bothers me. I feel like you could put out quality content without having the latest camera or a ring light or the latest greatest editing software. I feel like passion for me has always been a big thing in terms of channels that I follow. I don't look so much at, oh, does this person have a DSLR camera? Do they have good light? Like, if you're passionate about what you're talking about, for me as a viewer, that's what I look for. Because I think that telling somebody like, oh, your camera quality is not good, or you need a microphone, or you need this, and it's like, if someone's doing this because they're passionate about it and they enjoy it, let them be. Let them be happy. Okay, so one that I do see that's pretty common is having to read a lot of books quickly. I am not surprised by that. And I am very much so guilty about this. And I don't know if anybody's noticed a trend because I do it too. When we now do our wrap ups, we tag on how many books we read that month. And this is a thing that has come about in the past couple of years. It wasn't like that when I first started BookTube in 2014. So this is new. And I think that it creates kind of a stressful vibe for some viewers because then I think people feel like they must be obligated to read as much as booktubers do. I'm going to keep it 100 with y'all. Booktube is like a very niche part of YouTube in general. Okay. We're very, very niche. I also believe that the amount of stuff that we read in a year, y'all, is not realistic to people outside of our community. Even working within a library, the amount that I read and being a part of the booktube community is not realistic, even by librarian standards. Reading 300 books a year is not normal. And I hope that as a community, we can start having the conversation and start saying, like, we read a lot because I think it is our hobby. And also, I think it's because it's pressure to read a lot so you have content to put out. And I think that it makes people feel like, goodness gracious, I don't read at all. And people are like, oh, I'm just trying to read 30 books a year. And I'm like, that's good. That's normal. Because the average human on this planet, y'all, is not going to read, but probably in between 5 to 10 books a year. Whereas we are creating this situation in this environment, in this culture, that it's normal to read 200, 300 books a year, when really, honestly, it's not normal. That's not normal. If you walk down the street and you were to interview people and say, how many books have you read in the last year? Most people would be like, probably a few, maybe none, maybe one, maybe two. And that's probably the biggest expectation that I have a problem with, and one that I myself buy into, which is so complicated for me because I do naturally read a lot, but I want to be more weary of how I present that to people who watch my videos, because I don't want people to feel like they're not active readers, or they're not as good if they don't read, 400 books a year. That's not, I don't think that's fair. Yeah, so I see a lot of that. Like, I'm a slacker if I don't read 136 books a month. You have to read a lot. Yep. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about popular books. Let me see what else. Oh, Christina, you have a good one too. I wish like I could like rack like I wish we could do more than one comment at a time because there's some good comments. Y'all saw my uncle, right? See, that's why you can't put nothing on like you can't put nothing on your real life social media because people will come and watch you. That and then it's gonna seep through the rest of the family. Y'all know Ashley out on the internet talking to people at night, right? Just can't. Okay, Christina, this is a good one. And when I give my opinions, y'all, please understand that what I say is from my perspective. I speak for nobody but me. I can't speak for anybody but me. But Christina, we were having this conversation last night, and a lot of this conversation also seeped into what has happened to a lot of Black creators post the wave and influx of subscriptions that came in, following the murder of George Floyd, and people feeling like they should subscribe to Black content creators because, you know, that whole thing. And it was funny because that conversation turned into what BookTube's standard is for conventional beauty. And I was making this statement that I think that as a Black woman, regardless of whether because it has nothing to do with how I feel about my attractiveness, it's more so about how I think people view me in comparison to what they want to see on the screen. And for me, I am not media wise, I am not conventionally beautiful in the sense that what I look like is not what you typically see pushed in media in general. And um, very interesting conversation about how people would possibly, or and then there's no proof, but feeling like people would bypass you because you don't fit their standards of what they want your booktube person to look like, which in my opinion typically is young and white and and a woman. Like I feel like that is what the standard of booktube beauty is. Now, does that mean that people aren't attracted? No, that doesn't mean it. But I think that visually and thinking about people's biases, which is why I feel like the conversation about implicit bias is so important all the time, because everything is not always done in ill intent. Some people do now, I'm not gonna lie and say that people don't do stuff just to be evil. But sometimes when you think about concepts like implicit bias, people don't even realize that they're doing something that could be harmful to someone else, which in our case would be bypassing people who don't fit that traditional mold of what a booktuber should look like, and not watching those people, not because they're intentionally not watching them, but because they are unconsciously not attracted or not visually attracted to what they see. And that I think is a tough conversation because there's nothing to prove that that actually happens. But for me, I'm in one of those situations where I do feel like that that does happen. And I saw someone else make that comment too. Um, I think too that being young, white, um, and thin is young, white, thin, and a woman is what is conventional. And that's not the way of the world, but I mean, that's a tough one for me. That's a real tough one for me. Yeah, I think that I think that that goes hand in hand with the conversation about reading diversely. I think that and we also talked about this last night. Actually, Bree, Chloe, Erica, and I talked about a lot of this last night. I mean, it was pretty late, so I know a lot of people weren't necessarily watching, but we talked about this a lot last night in in having a conversation about what it means to read diversely. And for me, it's a very tricky conversation to have because you can't force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. You can't. You can tell someone that they need to read diversely till you're blue in the face, but if they don't see the value in it themselves, um, then I mean, what can you do? And then on top of that, I also feel like it has to be genuine. You don't want someone to force themselves to read diversely and it's not what they want to do. Because with anything, when you force someone to do something, they don't maintain. And they don't maintain because of the fact that it's not something that they genuinely want to do. I am a big fan of mood rating. I understand because I'm a mood reader myself. Y'all know I can't stick to a TBR to save my life, but here I am still making them, and it makes absolutely no sense. But I kind of think I have a subconscious idea of why I keep doing it. Um, but as a librarian, it's hard for me. And once again, I can only speak for me. As a librarian, it's very hard for me when I don't see people reading diversely because I have been trained to think in the mindset of what we call windows and mirrors. So, for instance, I'm raising my daughter to read books where she sees herself, which is the mirror, and she reads books where she understands other people. She sees other people, and that's the window. And the reason why I'm a big proponent of stuff like that is because I think that builds empathy. It helps you understand someone else's culture, their religion, their beliefs. Um, their racial identity, their sex identity, their gender identity. It helps you take a look outside of yourself. So I am always going to be an advocate for it. I think that, and the reason why I keep saying I is because I I do I do training for race conversations at work, and we're always taught to talk in I statements. And that's how you have a more productive conversation, is when you use the word I. So you're not speaking for anyone else, you're only speaking for yourself. Um I think that as a community we can do better. And when we say diverse, I think a lot of times when we say diverse, we automatically think race, ethnicity, um, sexual identity, gender identity, but diverse can also be reading more translated works. Because that gives you a different cultural experience. I mean, there's so many different perspectives of diversity, that I think that we as a community need to understand what diversity means first, because I don't know if we all have a grasp, um, and that I think we just use diversity as the equivalent for reading outside of our racial group or our ethnic group, and it's so much deeper than that. I would like to see more diversity, not just in those topics, but also in genre and target audience. And I understand that it's not for everybody, and that's why this conversation is so tough, because it literally is just not for it's not for everybody. Everybody doesn't like children's books. Everybody doesn't like middle grade books. Everybody doesn't like YA. Everybody doesn't like adult, but our community is very skewed towards YA. And I'm saying that as a teen librarian. So I'm not saying that like, oh, all we do is read YA. I mean, I read a lot of YA because I work with kids who read YA, but I feel like so much is missed out on in our community because we stick to one group, one genre. And it's gotten better, because it used to be, if anybody thinks it's bad now, it used to be so different 6 years ago too. So I have seen some branching out, but I would love to see more love for things outside of what is popular or what is YA. And I hate to bring numbers into it, but you can see that in people's videos. When people do start doing stuff outside of what is popular or what is usually for the YA target audience, their videos do a little bit lower, unless it's I don't know, y'all. This one, I feel like, I don't know. This one is a tough one for me, because I can sit on my horse and say, we need to read diversely. We need to start showing love for people who get published outside of the big five. We need to start picking up more indie. We need to start showcasing stuff outside of, but at the end of the day, part of me feels kind of helpless, because you can't force people to do stuff that they don't want to do. And I don't think that opting not to read diversely makes you a bad person. And I don't want anybody to get that impression. I just think sometimes you're missing out on some good stuff. Um, you're missing out on some great stories and some great opportunities, but it doesn't make anybody an inherently bad person. I don't want anybody to get that impression. Yeah, yeah. The mirrors and windows analogy is something that we actually are very much so taught in library school. You, especially when you work with youth, you are taught that entire methodology about, and it's an actual thing. Whenever you are building your collections, that you have to think in terms of mirrors and windows. So it that's why for me it's so difficult to have this conversation, because my mind is always thinking in terms of mirrors and windows. My mind is always thinking in terms of, I have to make sure that I'm reading books in which I know kids that I work with will see themselves, but I also need to be reading books where I'm giving them exposure to things that they may never see in their life, because I work in a community where most of my kids are never going to leave this city. They will never leave this city. And the only way that they will get the opportunity to see the world is through the books that they read. So that's why for me, I think diversity is such it's so important. Um, and it's so hard for me personally sometimes to hear I just pick up what I pick up. I just pick and for me it's kind of like, I get it though, but I get both sides of it and that's where I struggle. It's such an internal battle because it's like who am I to tell someone what to do with their hobby? Who am I to tell someone um this is what you need to do because for a lot of people reading is an escape. But then the other half of me is like sometimes reading for a lot of us is an escape and more. And a lot of I think my perspective too comes from working with kids. So, and a lot of what we see in the booktube community are adults. So, I I'm never very adamant about changing the way adults function sometimes because I feel like adults are a little bit more difficult to work with and um everybody is within their right to say, well, I read for an escape and I just pick up what I pick up. Um, and you can't stop people from doing that, but my soul sometimes my soul struggles. My soul struggles with that a lot. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and Tammy, that's a very, very good point. Not everybody has the range to read diversely, and that's the truth. I've seen too many reviews of books where people said, "Oh, I just didn't relate to it." Well, it wasn't written for you, so um, of course you're not gonna get it. Of course you're not gonna get it. Yeah, I wish I maybe I should talk about that a little bit more. The mirrors and windows thing. Yeah, that y'all, that is a huge thing. That is a huge thing. Yeah, and I think it's just one of those situations though where it's like it's looking at people's intentions and understand that we're all humans. Um and intentions are not always as clear as they seem. And I'm not trying to speak about it cryptically, but I am in some ways that for lack of a better term, everybody does not always have the best intentions, and that is life. And no matter what, at the end of the day, we're in a community where everybody's still getting to know each other. None of us, well, I can't say none of us because I don't know that for a fact, but I do truly believe like a lot of us, we didn't grow up together. A lot of us don't necessarily know each other in real life. We know each other connections through BookTube, but you have to understand that a lot of the connections that are made outside of more tight knit groups is very surface level. So you never know what people's intentions are. I am, though, a firm believer that if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. You cannot instruct people to do something that you yourself are not doing because that's not fair to criticize um, and to push people to do something that you yourself is you're kind of like, well, I'm not going to do it anymore myself. I think that's kind of an unfair thing to do. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to keep up with the comments, but listen. Trin! I'm glad I saw your name. I feel that. Yeah, I think reading is an escape, but reading it's kind of like that conversation that we have about like reading being political, whether it's political or not. You learn a lot from reading, and it is an escape, but it also is a tool of education, to be honest with you. Um, I have been pushing myself to read a lot more nonfiction this year, to become more aware. And I think that just has come with age and now having a child, um, that I'm like that. But it is an escape, but it also is a learning device as well. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. And I think, the tide is changing with librarians because in the field of librarianship, once again, the field of librarianship was very much so dominated by white women. And the narrative of what libraries should look like in terms of staffing is changing significantly. The numbers are not there yet, but the conversations are happening where it's time to start adding some voices into libraries where our children are getting equal access to materials because there should not be instances where, people my age, because I know, like, with my mom, a generation back, she wasn't going to have access to Black books in terms of, like, YA and children's because, I mean, keeping it 100, the number of published authors during her time in being a child was minuscule. But for me growing up, um, I think that with our generation, if anybody's in the same generation as me, I'm not gonna tell y'all my age. But um, I think that things started to change with us, and I see with the kids that I work with now, it's a lot different. It's not where it should be, but it's getting better. And it's unfortunate that you have people who have grown up and they said that they didn't read a book with someone that looked like them until they were an adult. That always hurts my feelings because I feel like they should have had that opportunity. Okay, catching up on can catching up, catching up, catching up. Um, yeah, yeah. Listen, um, it depends on what you have to also think about this in the framework of what are your intentions when you read. If you're a creator, what are your intentions with your channel? For me, whenever I talk about books on my channel, it is always to critically analyze it to either, and I don't believe in censorship. So I will quickly say a book was for me, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't read it. Censorship is really, really tricky for me in my profession because it's against my code of ethics. I can't. I literally cannot. And a lot of that seeps into my personal life as well. But I think framing yourself and thinking about, well, um, you know, what do I want to? What message am I trying to push out? What am I trying to give to my readers? I mean, to my viewers. And for me, it is heavily, reviewing and critically looking at things. But also, I can understand too, reading a book just to read it. Like in October, I went on a Black indie romance binge because I just needed something relaxing. Did I critically think about those? Heck no. Because you're right. You get tired. It is tiring to think that you have to critically analyze and annotate every single book that you read. I personally don't believe that you have to. It's okay to pick up a book and be like, I'm just reading this because I just need to relax my mind. Um, I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Okay. One of these days I'm gonna get better at these comments. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's very, very sad. It's heartbreaking to hear other black booktubers say, that they didn't have that experience or, they didn't have access to black books growing up. And once again, I mean, when we have a conversation about privilege, I think a lot of times when we talk about privilege, we always think about the privilege that white people have over black people. And a lot of that is how things are framed in the United States. You also have to think we have viewers that are not from um, that are not from the United States, and I think sometimes we let um, I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but it's very centric to what is happening in America at the time, and we forget that there are things that can be framed outside of our American experiences. And for this, like, I would say that this is even a point of privilege because you had, and myself too, I had the privilege of reading books with Black people in them. I had Black dolls, you know. Although it wasn't historically accurate, I had a mom telling me when I colored the pilgrims black that I was doing a good job, you know? So e households, it is a privilege to be able to bask in celebration of being Black and appreciating being Black, and it is disheartening when you see other Black people who didn't get that same experience. Um, I do. I do feel that way. Yeah, and that happens. It's a lot more common than I think people realize. Um I really do. I do think that people don't realize how common it is to come across people who are our age who who did not have access. I think, like I said before, in the generation that's coming after us, I think it's a little bit of a game changer. And I'd watched the a talk between um oh gosh, was it Alicia? It was Alicia D. Williams who wrote Genesis Begins Again, Nick Stone, um, what's the name of the guy who wrote Tristan Strong? I believe he was a part of that conversation. And I think it was two other people who were part of that conversation. And they were talking about how they had so few people. I mean, there are some pioneers who were doing the thing, but still the level of accessibility was not there. And now kids who are growing up now, like I think about my daughter, she's growing up in a time where like it is easy for me to get my hands on stuff where she can see herself in a book. Um, so I'm thankful for that, but it's always so hurtful to see, stuff like that has happened. All right, y'all. So y'all let me know. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about now, or do we want to go ahead and um sprint for a hot second? Because I did say this was like a chat and sprint, or we can just keep chatting. I mean, it's solely up to y'all. Whatever you want to do. I kind of go with the flow. I have a toddler. Going with the flow is kind of my end game. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think I passed someone's comment that had talked about um trauma, like trauma porn, real for Black people. And it's frustrating. It's good discussion points, but we don't always want to read about the trauma. Yeah, Tammy, there are some good ones out there, especially in I've seen some really good ones in the middle grade area. A lot of good ones in the middle grade area that I would not have seen 10, 15 years ago. Um, and that's really, really great to see. We have a small community of Chinese American families. It's a very, very small community, but we have started making sure that we also have books um, with representation for those kids because we know that their parents are coming looking for those materials. I mean, they of course are looking for everything else, but we specifically make sure that they have access to that stuff at our specific location because we know that they frequent our location. So But you're right. I'm jealous of the black kids growing up now, man. Got a lot of good stuff. Shay! Hey, love. Listen, Britt, you the only one talking about Sprint. Literally. You are the only one who well, there's like one there's only one other can sprint. So Deidre's running all the way out. Can you sprint so I can make a store run? Child, you listen. Yeah, yeah, they did. They most definitely did. I mean, Deidre and I were talking about, but this was a minute ago, like Blueford High and Drama High series. And I mean, there were a there are a lot, but I don't feel like they were readily accessible in the terms that they were being offered to a lot of people. But they did exist. They did exist, and I think that that offers another conversation. That it's amazing that I think with BookTube we do forget that um, publishers and other people who sponsor stuff, if you get to that point, do identify you as an influencer. And that's important to note because the YA market is booming right now. And people also have to understand that YA as a and it's not a genre, that's about to mess up and say a genre. YA or teen as a target audience, because there's a specific difference. YA is not a genre, it is a target audience. The same way middle grade is not a genre. It's a target audience. Um, is not that old. It develop thinking about the development of YA as a target audience um, really did not pop off until Harry Potter and Twilight. And that's considered the golden age of YA. The outsiders, but I feel some type of way about Essie Hinton right now. I just we're not seeing eye to eye um, over some comments, but Essie Hinton is also considered a big part of that. In um, I have a video on this if you really want detailed explanations of the evolution of YA. Essie Hinton and a couple of other authors were known eh, during the 60s in that period for creating materials for teens that were based on real life experiences. So prior to Essie Hinton, they had books available for for teens, but they were very much so gendered, happy, go lucky. Everything that was geared towards teen girls was about, you know, um, I don't want to say like romance and love, but I mean, yes. And then for teen boys, it was um, adventure and stuff like that. And they kind of changed the genre by making it about real life experiences and tough topics. And then you have this explosion happening in the 2000s where now we are defining that there should be a group of books that are specifically defined and written for a teen audience that go past the boundaries that were set forth in the decades of before. So with this golden age, it's young. It's young. Twilight came out in what, y'all? 2000 what, 5? Harry Potter came out in what, 99, 98. It's not an old area that has been built for a specific target audience. It is very, very young. Um, and I think that because it has become so popular, you have to consider that uh, uh, of course publishing is a business. It's about making money at the end, and it's being real. I mean, that's real life. People have to make their money to live, and it's easy to use visual platforms to push and assist in marketing materials. And what happens, unfortunately, is that things get pushed more so than others, which is why you end up in this situation where um, people feel like Black books geared towards teens didn't exist before a certain time when they've existed for a minute, but they weren't during a time when you had things like YouTube. They weren't marketed as well. I mean, you have to think about the disparities in publishing, but they were there and they still do exist. I think about like Walter D. Myers, the king of teen fiction, and you'll never hear people really talk about him. Never, which is so unfortunate. Okay. I haven't read that one yet, Tammy. Yeah, Shay, that's another Miss WOC reader um can provide some good insight uh to that. And um reading romances with not only by Black authors, but also reading romances with Black love interests and showcasing Black love. And people don't always understand why that's important to the Black community. And I'm not going to deep dive into that because that can end up being a whole discussion of its own. Um, but that is super important. Seeing romances that have, a happily ever after or happy for now between two Black characters to the Black community is very damn important. And some people still don't get that. And it drives me a little crazy, but I'm glad that more people are kind of delving into it. Yep, it's always a good thing. Okay, catching up on y'all. I suck at comments. I really do. But StreamYard sucks at these comments, to be honest. Yes, yes, Sharon M. Draper. Sharon M. Draper never gets talked about in the booktube community. Oh my God. And I never, come the life of me, figure out why no one reads Sharon Draper. She writes has written some of the most pivotal Black YA books of our time. And honey, 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 honey. Yes, Blueford, Drama High. Very, very important. Very, 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 very important. Very, very important. Yeah, yeah, that's what I that's a huge thing. They existed, but the access was not present. It was not present. Y'all know how I feel about Essie Hinton and the way that she dragged graphic novels. I am. I'm actually listening to that one on audio, but I had to wait. I checked out a physical copy from my library because I felt that I was getting very much so lost in the narrative and that I wanted to do a hybrid read of Black Sun. Um, And I'm going to answer this tactfully because I think it is a valid question. It is a question that um, it's a question that I see a lot. Why are there African American sections in bookstores in some libraries? Because you have to understand the history behind publishing because books were not always just books. And there wasn't the same level of respect and access for Black authors as there is now. And I think that for a lot of the classics, it is in due right that they get their recognition. I don't look at it as it being a separate entity and them trying to quote unquote segregate books. I think it is out of due respect for those authors that did not get the recognition that they deserved. Um, and I think that it is important for that to be showcased. And I hate to use this as an example, but I'm going to go here. I hope I don't offend anybody. It's the same reason why people have an issue with the existence of BET. Why does there have to be Black entertainment television? And a lot of that has to do with the fact that because we weren't able to, the Black community, I can't say we because I wasn't living, but because of a lot of aspects of the Black community were not integrated, we had to create our a separation. Um, and I don't think that in libraries and bookstores it is ill intentioned. I think it is to bring awareness and recognition of those authors and those books that did not get credit because in teen and in children's, because I'm thinking about it in terms of a library, the only separation that occurs is teens and children's and adult. In teen and children's, you don't see that separation. But in adult, you do see that separation. And a lot of the um, AFAM books are a lot of older books. I'm not saying that there's no new books that are not classified as AFAM and speaking from my librarian experience, but I think it's important. I think it's important to give that recognition. One of these days, y'all, I promise, I promise, I promise, I promise, I will. Hey, Bethany. Yeah, I did too. I did too. This year, I really did. I made it my goal to um, especially with Black indie romance, I have made that my thing where I think I read my first couple last year, towards the end of last year, and I was like, this year I definitely want to push myself more into it because I think that that specific subgenre, they, they really don't get enough love. They don't get enough love at all. Goodness gracious, y'all. Yes, S.E. Hinton was, oh gosh. Um, it was the comment about someone asked, I don't know if someone's already explained this in the comments, um, but someone asked if she would ever consider um if she would ever consider uh turning The Outsiders into a graphic novel. And she answered back essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, so anybody please correct me if I misquote the intentions behind it. But essentially, what S.E. Hinton was getting at is that she um, would never turn her book into a graphic novel because her book was a means to let people know that they knew how to read, and they didn't sit there mindlessly turning the pages of a graphic novel. It basically was kind of equivalating reading a graphic novel to not being able to read or not being substantial literature, which I'm not going to get into because I that's a constant uphill battle for me every single day in my job. Every single day in my job, that is an uphill battle. And I wish that even in our community, I think one of the things that, um, for me, in terms of going back to what this conversation is about, just booktube expectations, is um, that we are so expected to stay within this box of what everybody knows that we don't really get to explore other forms of literature. And for me, graphic novels and comics hold a very, very special place in my heart, especially because I use them to advocate for reluctant readers. And I advocate for them to be used with my babies who are having a tough time transitioning from picture books to chapter books. So that comment really, 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 um, it really pissed me off because I fight with parents on a daily having to validate why graphic novels are important and that sitting your baby down who A doesn't like to read or B is having a tough time reading, shoving them the same classics and page after page of text is not going to do it. It harms them. It makes them hate reading. It makes them not want to pick up books. And I can't, it hurts my soul to my core to see a child who tells me I don't like reading. And I'm like, baby, who has done you wrong? What adult has done wrong by you? So, um, yeah, she's pissed me off, and it's so hard because I recognize the importance of the work that she's done in terms of YA, and I know that because that I mean that was my focus area when I was in grad school. Was looking at teen lit, and I did a little bit of children's lit, but teen lit definitely is a heavy focus for me. So it's hard looking at someone that you've studied and have had to um, analyze in terms of what they've contributed to YA as a whole. See her make a comment like that, which is, I mean, it was asinine. Oh, it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, BET is kind of trash now. Off topic. BET is kind of a trash thing. Lala, I just, this is one of those things where it's like you can choose not to answer. You can choose not to respond. And you can choose you have your glory to forever be remembered in terms of YA literature and being the assigned classic for high school kids. And it's like just be quiet. Be quiet. There's just some people you just don't need to be on social media. And just go in your corner, live your life, bask in your royalties, and leave everybody alone. She did not have to open up her mouth. Yes, I could. I did. I I missed that one, and I'm glad that I did. I exactly. Imagine, but what's so crazy about that is I see it all the time. And I see it all the time. All the time. you know, eh, I don't even want to. It's just that's a mess. That's a mess. That's a mess. That's a mess. And I feel for the people. Like I just saw Deidre's comment. I feel for the people who really enjoyed reading her book as a classic for school. I really do. That's such a tainted that creates such a tainted image. Yeah, no, yeah, I would definitely recommend, I would definitely recommend if you can, if you have access, um, try graphic novels if you've never if you haven't tried it yet. Try graphic novels, because they do help. They do help. But Leah, that comes with a history of, that comes with a history of comics, and I'm sure you know this. That comes with the history of even using the terminology comics and graphic novels, and people still don't give them respect. Um, because I think that comics and graphic novels have gotten, well, comics more first than graphic novels. Comics, and that's why people are confused about the terminology between the two, is that um, the terms were used interchangeably back in, I think, the 70s or the 80s, because comics had this reputation of being junky and kiddie. And a lot of that had to do, I think, when Batman um, was turned into a TV show. I think it kind of solidified, like, oh, this is kiddie. Like, we can't take any of this serious. And from then on, they would try to use the term graphic novel because, novel itself is more indicative of a um, a, for lack of a better term, classier uh, piece of literature. And um, I think that that idea has kind of just stayed, that they're junk, they're kiddie, they're just a form of entertainment, when there have been studies after studies now that prove that graphic novels are, they're a tool, and it's logical. It's just like it makes sense to think, like, um if you have children transitioning, and I'm going to go off on a tangent really quick because I just want to say this. One of the things that I feel that we don't expect, or um, we don't look at as a book community, that we don't expect from ourselves, is understanding, truly understanding how literature develops. And what I mean by develops, understanding the steps that people go through when it comes to reading, like knowing that when you're in between the ages of 0 to 2, you're usually working with board books. Board books are hard. They're very conceptual, meaning that they focus on numbers, they focus on letters, colors, single words, associations with pictures and words. Like, I was able finally to get baby girl to associate meow with seeing a picture of a cat and seeing the word cat, and knowing that that type of concept learning then transitions over to picture books, where we are still, like, as a person that is storytime trained, I intentionally, whenever I do story time, I am trained to read books that focus on, once again, same thing as board books, colors, numbers, shapes, depending upon the age group that I'm reading to, storylines that are very simplistic, maybe 2, 3 words on a page, um, heavy picture use, and people forget that that's how you learn. You associate pictures with words. It is a key way that we teach people to read. That when we are working with people who are struggling readers, the pictorial representation helps. It is I can't remember the exact, and then we were just talking about this at work a couple days ago, I think last week, and I can't remember the exact term for it, but I'm just gonna use the term pre-reading, where you go through a book before you read it, and you allow the child to figure out what the story is going to be, um, through the pictures. They start to put the story together just by looking at the pictures, even if they can't read every single page every single word on the page. So, what becomes a problem with people not respecting graphic novels is that they don't realize is that some kids have a difficult time transitioning from that pictorial association to getting a chapter book, which, once again, for me as a community, I don't think we talk about this enough, is that once you leave picture books, children's books, which I don't know if everyone of us, and I don't have, maybe I should stop saying I don't have that expectation because everybody doesn't have that training. Children's books are targeted for second to fourth grade level readers. Does that mean that they're in second grade? Does that mean that they're in third grade or fourth grade? No. It means that they're on a second grade through a fourth grade reading level. That's children's. Middle grade is from fifth grade to eighth grade. And some people will make a case that sometimes it can bleed a little bit over into ninth grade, but for hard lines, I will say fifth through eighth grade. When you have a child that is very much so into um, the pictorial representation and using that as a means to assist them in reading, they are not going to pick up a chapter book, okay? And be able to process all of those words on that page. It becomes overwhelming, it becomes stressful, and then they turn into these cute little individuals that are like, I don't like reading anymore. And it becomes um they start to associate it with being distressed. So graphic novels are so important because they keep the kid on grade level, but it still helps with the pictorial element. And then I say, whenever kids get past or whenever they become more comfortable with more advanced graphic novels, then you can start moving them to things like Diary of a Wimpy Kid or The Dork Diaries or Geronimo Stilton, because those have a lot more words on the page, but they still have pictures involved. And eventually, it'll help them transition out of that. So I think when you understand the structure and the psychology behind how the brain works for some kids when it comes to reading and learning, and um, the guiding with the pictures is super important, and that's why graphic novels are important. I don't know, but then again, like I say, everybody just doesn't have that training, so I don't have that expectation. I do not have that expectation. Okay, y'all, do you want to sprint? Do you want to sprint? Because I've been running my mouth now for an hour, a whole hour, and we haven't sprinted yet. And I definitely shared this and was like, "We're gonna be chatting and sprinting," and we haven't sprinted. Yeah, you do. I remember this little boy who came into the library and um, he said to me, um, that he wanted to read, but he didn't know what to pick out. So, we started with some graphic novels, and he was so amazed by he was like, "Oh, like there's Batman and Spider-Man and all this stuff." And I mean, they have this for like more so like a middle grade audience, so not thinking like straight off the press Marvel and DC type of situation. Um, but it was great seeing his eyes light up and knowing that it was going to be a fun experience for him. So, all right, y'all, how about this? let's sprint for 20 minutes. And while we're sprinting, think of um, some more some more topics. Josh, wake up because I was up till 3:30 this morning messing around with y'all, and I woke up at 7 o'clock, and here I am on live again at 9:40 p.m. So stay up. All right, so I'm not gonna do the timer today. I'm just gonna put well, that's stupid because everybody's not in the same time zone. Yes, Bethany, you make a good point. You make a very, very good point. Okay, let's sprint, y'all. Junie B. Jones is a. I was about to curse. I'm just gonna put it in the chat. How did everyone do? I'm not gonna lie, I was super distracted by the trolls. Lots and lots of trolls. How many pages did y'all read? Don't worry, Tammy. I made it through like 3 pages. Oh, what am I? Oh, Lala. What am I not reading? So, okay. So I'm gonna do a quick reading check-in with y'all. So I don't have to do it on Instagram tonight. Which, yes. All right. So I'm making sure I have all my books within my vicinity. Okay. So we did have a discussion about this one last night, but I still have 2 hours left in the audio because this y'all just need to go watch the live. We had a discussion about that. So I'm reading that. I am also making my way through Princess Jellyfish. I am also making it through Sorry for My Familiar, which I got from Shay. Shay, I went through your Goodreads. I was not lying to you when I said that, and took it off your Goodreads. I am reading the second book in the Kakario Bed and Breakfast for Spirits series. I need to start Stamp from the Beginning, but do you see how floppy and thick this thing is? Like, it's huge. And then I am, oh gosh, I started a new audiobook today. I didn't need to start a new audiobook. Like, why did I start a new audiobook? Because I clearly dislike myself, and I am now having, I don't know what I'm going through. I don't want to say it's a crisis, but well, y'all can't see that. I'm not on. I'm yeah. I'm reading Rising Out of Hatred. I started listening to Rising Out of Hatred today, which is the awakening of a former white nationalist, because I read um, Sisters in Hate, and I saw that my library had that one available, and I was like, why not? I am also listening to, for Indigathon, I have, I believe it's called The Legend of the Skeleton Man. It's called The Legend of the Skeleton Man by Joseph Brujak. I hope I'm not tearing up his last name, but I'm reading that one for a digithon. And then also They Called Us Enemy for nonfiction. I'm in the middle of a lot of crap, y'all. Let's just put that's probably why I have no urge to read, because I'm in the middle of so much. I'm in the middle of so much crap right now. It's ridiculous. But y'all seem to do good. Yeah, see, that's me. Christina, I think I was in the same boat. I was like, I have so much stuff. I was kind of like, well, I really don't know what to pick up. And I don't feel like I retained anything. Okay, 2%. Jennifer's reading a graphic novel. Which one? Oh, you made it to volume 95 of One Piece? I commend you. That is a long behind series. Bethany, what are you reading right now? I usually watch your IG stories to catch up on what you're currently reading. Yes. Yeah, I went through your Goodreads. I feel like such a creeper. But I don't think you mind. I went through your Goodreads, I think maybe a day or two after I had that live, and I just went to go see what you had been reading, and that one sounded. Sorry for my familiar, just sounded really good. So I saw the library had it, and I decided to put it on hold. Yes, I feel like I've heard you say this before. Like, I don't know if you said it in a video or if you said it in Instagram stories, but Hoopla has an audio for it. So I may blend it and do it that way because I feel like I'm gonna need it to help me keep my focus. Oh, I was also listening to Black Sun, y'all. I think I said that before, but I stopped because I needed a physical copy. That was when I can't listen to an audio by itself. Bree, I'm not gonna even waste your time because I'm not gonna follow it. I I am the most disorganized, organized person on the planet when it comes to reading. And I want to follow a schedule, but I just can't. Yes, don't be mad about reading my future husband's works. He just doesn't know it yet. I met him in February of this year, and Jason is shy in person. He's very. Let me stop calling this man Jason like I know him. I don't know that man. I met him once, and I was too scared to even ask for his picture. It was real cute. Okay, so I'm reading that too, Jennifer. They call this enemy. Okay, well, I'm stuck, Bethany, on I'm 60% into Slave to Sensation. I haven't picked it back up. I don't know what's going on with me. I think November is just not my my reading month. It just may not be my reading month. All right, I'll DM you next time, Shay. Hopping, hopping, hopping. The chump likes to, the chat likes to hop. Hoppity hop, hop, hop. Ooh, what is your rating? That's part of a series. Is it the author's name Megan something something? Um, Correct me, Ani, if I'm wrong. Yes, you're gonna love Persepolis. Um, I have also I have also started Persepolis, y'all. I'm a mess this month, man. Um, yes, but Persepolis I read for the first time as my freshman seminar book in college, and it was the best reading experience I have ever had in my life. Such a powerful book, a powerful story, um, a lot of history about Iran that I think is not always told. And Jerry, yes, please ship me and Jason. It's a running joke at work, and I said, "Oh, that's definitely my future husband," and couldn't even speak to the man. Couldn't even speak to the man. He wouldn't remember he wouldn't remember me if I saw him again today. He sees so many people. About food and mystery. Oh, child. That's all I do is read books about food. Was it a cozy mystery? It is a cozy mystery. I may be able to narrow it down a little bit. Can you remember what the color of the cover was? Yeah, yeah. I think too, Bethany, reading Sisters in Hate and then the book about Trump back to back. Oh gosh, it was just so much. It was just so much. It was just so much stuff, and I think they both were super heavy. So now that I mean, I finished two comics after that. I reread Bitter Root and read a comic, y'all, called Money Shot. And I'm not gonna even explain. I won't explain what that is until I do my final wrap up. But if you know what Money Shot means, you know what that comic was about. And I went into reading that comic knowing full well what Money Shot was. Um, I think maybe I need to lighten it up. I think I need to lighten it up. Oh, I need to read Trail of Lightning as well. I still have not read. I still not have read that. Still have not read Cemetery Boys, and it's on the TBR. Not your Uber driver is cranking Carol. Oh no. Yeah, um it's called Deidre, help me out. Deidre just finished this one. I think she gave it 4 stars. Deidre, what is the name of that cozy mystery by Vivian? Is her name Vivian Chen? Oh gosh. Yeah, Death by Dumpling. Thank you. Thank you, Deidre. Yeah, that's it. That is exactly what that is. Yep. Deidre just finished it and she's you did give it 4 stars, right, Deidre? I'm not bugging. I'm not lying to people, am I? I'm excited to read it all up. Because I keep hearing great things about it. I need to figure out life. No, I haven't read it, but I just keep hearing that people really, really have enjoyed it. Um, and that it's a great book, and I still have not read it. As y'all are naming all the stuff that I need to read and I haven't read, and to be honest with you, I don't know what I've been reading. Been reading some um I just have been reading dark stuff. I went from Sisters in Hate to Trump to reading about a comic. If y'all have never read Bitterroot, which Bitterroot does not get enough love um, in this community, Bitterroot is Chef's Kiss. The second volume just dropped either the end of last month or this month. That's a heavy one too. Money Shot, Money Shot is was interesting in its own right, I guess. Um, yeah, I do. I do need some light reads after that. Money Shot was a light read, but I think Money Shot was just an impulse buy because it was done by a comic book writer where I'd read some of his other stuff and I had rather enjoyed it, and I had saw that he was doing this comic, and I was like, okay, well, I'll buy it. Um, and It was a trip and a half. It really was, but it did touch on some really important conversations. But I mean, it's a book called Money Shot. That's enough to say. Yeah, I okay. But I listened to both of them on audio, and Sisters in Hate really came from me and Bethany talking because it wasn't on my radar until Bethany and I were talking. and she was telling me about it. And then I decided I went to go see if my library had it, and I listened to it on audio. And then I think I had checked out the book on Trump earlier this year, but it was right in the middle of when we were on lockdown, and I was like, I don't think mentally I can deal with the concept of a pandemic and reading this book at the same time. But I ended up just checking it out, and I don't know what it gave me the impulse, but it was informative to a certain degree. And I think what I had said in my review during my mid-month wrap up is that uh, Woodward definitely, and I don't know if I'm just gonna call him Bob because I don't think I say his last name right. But Bob stopped at a certain point in that book in terms of his presidency, and he just put out another one called Fire. Is it called Fire? No, it's called some. I think it's called Rage. Maybe it's called Rage. And now I have to look. But it's about the second half of his presidency. And lo and behold, guess who put it on hold? Me. Why I do this to myself? Yeah, it's called Rage. Um, and then on top of that, I started listening to another book about white nationalism, and then I put another book on hold about it's called Culture Warlords, which is about white supremacy. I don't know. I feel like I do this stuff to myself, and then I end up in a slump, which is I think I'm kind of slumping out right now. Yeah, I want to avoid it, Deidre, but I don't want to get into position either where I keep rereading the first volume over and over again because I had forgotten some stuff in the first volume. Um, but my reread was good, and I'm excited to pick up the second volume. I may need to do that, Tammy. Well, I'm listening to the Legend of the Skeleton Man is a middle grade horror, which is a little bit lighter. I mean, it's creepy though. It's really really creepy. I had spoiler alert, not boiler. I had spoiler alert on Libby, and I lost it because I didn't listen to it in enough time. And there was a long wait list for it, and I can't believe I lost my hold. It's so depressing. Hey, Erica, did you sleep well? Because I'm running off of 3 hours, baby. Oh, I didn't know that it was only the first half and that he was coming out with a second part. Yeah, I knew it was coming out, but I didn't know it was a first part. That's interesting. Listen, the book buying impulse is a real thing because I've had to walk away from the computer a couple of times. I think so, Shay. I think it's time for me to start picking up. I have a couple of things lined up from some indie authors that I went to check to see if they had any holiday stuff, and they do. Because it was true, because Josh was on a live stream last night talking about um let's do this 5 hours. Because when we did our discussion on the deep, that ended up being like a 5.5 hour live unintentionally. Um so of course last night Josh was like, let's do another 5 hours. And literally at the beginning, you're right. I like 30 seconds into the live, I'm like, this is not going to be 5 hours. I'm not going to do 5 hours because I have to get up and I have to go to work in the morning. And the live was 5 hours and 25 minutes last night. I went to sleep at 3:30 this morning. Crazy, 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 man. Leah, you're already on volume 17. I haven't even made it to volume 2 yet. It's crazy. It's just crazy. I do too, Josh. I do too. Bethany, can you D them? Can you D them? Can you DM that to me? Because I'm not going to remember. Once we get off the live, I will surely forget. No, you didn't text me today, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, it is what it is. I guess no love. What did you think, though, of Love Boat Taipei? Yeah, yeah, you're right. Because even Chloe was like, "No, we're not gonna do 5 hours." There we were, 5 hours and 25 minutes in. This live is not gonna be 5 hours. I could tell you that. Oh, Bethany, I'm so happy to have you here. Josh, why didn't you say something last night? Why didn't you be like, listen, y'all, don't y'all have to get up and go to work in the morning? And it's a shame that we were still alive. And you had the audacity to say last night, I'm still here, but I'm in the bed now. um, so I literally do not have, I think I was talking about this in like a book haul where I was saying like I literally do not have the money to buy books like that. Literally. My budget is super, super tight um being a single parent. Let me tell y'all, budgeting is the craziest thing. And I have a child that's in daycare. So I really don't, when I buy books, I usually have to wait until I can get it. Like, I have to wait until it's been some time after the release so I can get it secondhand at a cheaper price, which is why I always end up with so many library books that are new releases because I can't do a new release. I can't purchase a new release unless it's something that I really, 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 really want. Like, part of me feels like I'm going to end up getting my own copy of Black Sun, you know? I think that's going to end up being a thing. I just feel like that's going to be a thing. Um, but usually I have to wait, and I usually get it from my secondhand bookstore or online secondhand, just because you know life. Yeah, it was a good discussion. It was a really good discussion. Thank you, Bethany. You are appreciated. Yes, you do because you bought me a copy, and we need to read it. Okay, yeah. Um, how far are you into Love Boat? Because that is a very seriously valid criticism. Even though I've given it 4 stars each time that I've read it this year. I've read it twice this year. Chat jumped again. Um, Shannon, I can't tell you a number because I don't know anymore. What I can tell you is that I'm running out of space, which is another reason why I need to slow down. I need to slow down on receiving stuff as well. Saying no, like just say no type of situation. Because I don't have the space anymore. We are running out of space here. Um, And it's mainly because of the way that my bookshelves are built. They don't sit up tall, they're low, which y'all know that. Y'all know that. Really? You gave it 5 stars. I am shocked. I am shocked. I thought that you would either rate it the same as me or rate it lower. I am surprised. That's so selfish, Josh. That Bree said, "You're not loyal at all." Um, that's the benefit for me, I will say, of working at a library is that my impulse buying usually ends up being me browsing a shelf and just taking as much stuff as I want to take home with me, which is which helps. It does help. Like and then plus the way that I can, in the system, I can see stuff in the system. Um, and hold on, going back to what we were talking about before we sprinted. So, what we think is popular, y'all, this is so strange. What we think is popular in our community is not popular always at large, which is funny. The whole list, which I was surprised because of how much our community is talking about, like Black Sun, the whole list for Black Sun is not long at all. And I work in a very big system. So I was like, I was shocked, but then not shocked because it's one of those things where it's like I have to remember that not everything necessarily is the equivalent from inside our community to the outside world. What we really want to read doesn't mean that the general like public wants to read. So I found that just really interesting. Just a side note. Just a side note. Oh, 3 full price books right now? Wow, Lala. Okay. I really want a copy of This Is My America. I already read it, but I want my own physical copy. A copy of Black Sun. Ooh, this was a high one. The new omnibus bind up of the Fables comic book series by Bill Willingham. That bind up is like could be anywhere between 70 to $90. So if I had the money, I would do those 3 easily. Y'all, paying for daycare is a mortgage payment. I just want the world to know that not only do I have to make a payment for where I live, but I make another payment of the equivalent in childcare. So when I say like I'm very strict about my numbers, and if I spend money on books, it's literally because I've gotten somewhere edgewise. Some bill didn't wasn't as high as I thought it was gonna be. Daycare is stupid expensive. I feel you. I feel you. I can't tell you how many times I filled up a cart on Right Stuff and then exited out of the website. So I don't do it because I definitely would. Okay, y'all. I promise you. I'm trying to. Okay, there we go. Now I'm back where I was. Okay, so some of y'all are answering Shannon's question. Okay, Case, so have I. Um, I have missed our library book sale so much. They're so great finding paperbacks for $1. I used to go in there with my little bag and rack up. Like that's where a lot of my mass market paperbacks have come from, is a library book sale. Okay, bravo, 50. One day I will be like you. Okay. Yeah, it's like that. Like it when you what I was doing spending wise pre-baby is so different after having a baby. It's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen this month. Like I may want something and be like, yeah, that's not gonna happen this month. We're gonna in the near future, maybe that will happen. And it's not disappointing or anything. It's just your perspective of your finances is a little different. You know, for me, it's not even just putting money aside. I'm like, oh, I got some flexibility for books. Like, I also have to make sure, I have a growing child. So what was fitting 2 months ago is not fitting now. So, it's like every season buying a whole new wardrobe. Like, I just had to buy her a new pair of shoes, and she just got her first pair of shoes 2 months ago, and they're already too small. But that's because babies grow so fast. And um, I make sure that I have a certain brand of shoes, just make sure her feet are stable, not because I'm bougie, because I will never buy my child a pair of J's. I mean, that's just me personally. That's a whole different discussion. Um, but like stride rights for kids are like $45 for a pair of shoes that they wear for 2 months. And $45 may not seem like a lot until you're on a strict budget and you're like, damn, that's you know, gas for 2 weeks right about now. So, it's interesting. Things you look at things a little bit differently. There's been some interesting conversations. It's the drama about it is good, but I think that there's some further issues. I have to look more into it, but, then there's some things that happen with characters that I don't like. 400? I don't know if we'll see. By Brit, we'll see when cause I need to do some mathematics. 480. But but then we had this conversation. You read a lot though. So that number is not. Bethany cranks her books out. Don't feel bad. I do too. Um, and I've been getting access to new releases through Libro FM with their advanced listening copy program. So that's helped me with new releases in terms of getting access to stuff um, that I've been wanting to listen to that are new releases that I can't afford to buy. I will do the audiobook to kind of help. And it's kind of good like that because sometimes I read a book that I think I'm really, really gonna love and I like it. But then I'm like, would I reread it? Because a lot of what I do with my physical purchases now, um, it's either a book that I really, 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 really want, or it's a book that I'm inclined to also reread. Josh, you could have told us to go to sleep. Easy. Yeah, I run into the same issues too, where like I should be reading the books I own, but then like when you're in a library like literally, I'm in a library all day. I'm surrounded by books all day. It's kind of hard not to just pick up something off of a shelf and read it instead of picking up from my own shelf. No, for my library, it isn't, which is I was surprised. Um, that's a hard question because I work in a system that has, and I'm not going to say the number because I try to kind of be a little bit discreet about my place of employment. Um, I work for a system that has a lot of locations. Let's leave it at that. So it's hard for me to track that number because I don't have access to that number from other locations. My location, honestly, it's a lot of the older stuff. The Bluford High series moves a lot. Drama High moves a lot. Jason Reynolds moves a lot. Walter Dean Myers moves a lot. Um, honestly, Nick Stone and Angie Thomas don't move that much at at my specific location. They don't. I usually can keep Nick Stone and Angie Thomas on my shelves. Um, a lot of my kids too are into comics and graphic novels. So I see a lot more of those move than I would a full length novel because a lot of the kids that I work with are not on grade level. So while the books may be interesting, they're too difficult. Um, and the size is often intimidating, which is why I'm also a huge advocate for high-low books, which Ashley Woodfolk just wrote the Lux. Not the Lux. The Lux is the first book. It's called the Fly Girl series, and the Fly Girl series is high-low, which I've been trying to tell people that it's high-low because I don't want people to rate them low based on the writing style because it is very much so intentional. And a couple of you have heard me talk about this before, where high-low books are used both in education sphere and librarian sphere, um, where they are high interest but low difficulty. So they're written in a way um, that is good for the reading level. They're good for reaching the student where they are in their reading level. Um, but the topic itself is relevant to them. So you wouldn't have to give like a 10th grader who may only be reading on like a fifth grade reading level. You don't have to give them a middle grade book or a children's book. You can give them a teen book that that is relevant to them, but the difficulty in reading it is not there. So um, that's a difficult question. And that question also, the answer to that question has also changed because of the pandemic. So I'm not seeing anything right now naturally. Um, and I don't know when I will, which is sad. I have a lot of feelings about that. My wish list is always in my videos, y'all. It's always there. But don't feel inclined. Don't feel inclined. I always feel like I'm gonna say guilty, but I was like, I do. I feel like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm always so grateful because I appreciate people thinking of me. Um, but I always feel like I don't know. I'm bad at accepting gifts from anybody, y'all. I'm horrible at it. I'm horrible at it. Very, very horrible at it. Yeah, well, most people don't. They don't know what we're talking about in our group. They don't know what we're talking about most days, what we're into. Y'all were busy talking. Y'all gotta tell me to stop running my mouth. To stop running my mouth because I talk so much. Yay. Those are really, really good. Those are really, really good. Um, I think all of our copies have gone lost or missing at the library. But I mean, that's a good thing because that means that people are checking them out and reading them. Nah, not. I'm catching up. I'm reading. I'm reading. I wouldn't eat Timmy. I can't say the last time I bought myself clothes. I haven't bought myself clothes in at least. uh, I bought myself clothes right when I got pregnant because I needed pants that would fit with a stomach because I carried big. Um, that was the last time I bought clothes. So she's should be 14 months this week. Yeah, so I haven't bought clothes in over a year. Over a year. Yep. Thanks for coming, Shay. Y'all, we're not staying up past 11 tonight. We're not staying up past 11. Is it really? I probably did that intentionally. Lala, leave me alone. No, Josh. 11 EST. E freaking ST. Okay, I'm keeping up. I'm keeping up. Y'all, I feel like I'm having a hot flash. I don't know if I am or if I don't think I got you. I feel like I'm having a hot flash. I have not. I have not, my love. I will one day. Yes, yes. I'm glad that more people are starting to know what it is. Um it's super important. Thanks, Bethany. I just run my mouth. I run my mouth. I run my mouth and run my mouth. Okay, Tammy, what you want? 5 more minutes? 11:05? Have fun, Shannon. Thank you for joining us, love. You want 11:05? Because listen, wait. So are you at work right now? Are we keeping you company at work? I mean, if we are, I wouldn't be mad at you. I would not be mad at you. Um, Deidre, that nonfiction graphic novel about the rock band, did you find that on Hoopla? I feel like I saw that. I think I did, but I could be making stuff up. Ooh, bubble kisses. I I have to start thinking about what I'm gonna get the little one for Christmas in terms of like books. She don't need any more, but I figured one or two might be nice. So we don't have to continuously read the same books over and over again. Good night, doll. Okay, Tammy just bought y'all 5 extra minutes. 5 minutes. So everybody thank Tammy for 5 extra minutes. Oh, Bethany, that's gonna be so cute. That's gonna be really, really cute. Did you well, I'm guessing. Well, I don't know. Did y'all already film it? Did he have fun filming it if you've already filmed it? Why are you up So did you just wake up and hop on the live? That's badass if you did. If you woke up and you're like, I'm gonna hop on a live. 6 a.m. Y'all, there was so much work I was supposed to get done tonight. Did I get it done? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yay. That's fun. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what he's into. Because there's so much stuff out there now. And how do you navigate that as a parent? I know how to navigate it from a librarian side, but I always wonder, how do parents navigate um, picking out books for their children, because I mean, y'all, the amount of children's books that get published every year is crazy. What releases tomorrow? I haven't been keeping up with new releases at all. We should get an extra 5 in addition to the 5 I added for Tammy. Why? Why should you get an extra 5 for the 5 that I gave to Tammy? What is the justification behind that? Okay, so Cassandra, um, I I'm in the same boat. I That's definitely just a natural stage in development for them to be doing that. Um, what are the ages? Tell me the ages, and maybe I could help you out a little bit better. Okay, so I have a copy of These Violent Delights, and I'm super excited because Romeo and Juliet is one of my favorite Shakespearean plays. Um, I didn't realize that that hadn't come out yet. Whatever, don't mind me. Rhythm of War, and then of course, the Burning God. I saw that R. Kwong had put up a mashup of the 5-star reviews of the Burning God, and that people apparently some damage was done. 8, 7, and 6. Well, I see that Bethany has already assisted in answering your question. I definitely would go for Yanni. I'm about to check you because I just saw your comment. Let me finish assisting, and then I'm gonna talk to you. Um, Magic Tree House is really good for that age group. Geronimo Stilton um, is very interactive. I can't read Geronimo Stilton, and it's not written for me clearly. But one of my biggest things with Geronimo Stilton, why I couldn't read it, is because because there's so much going um, on the page, but kids really seem to like it. I think that, see, your 8-year-old, uh, Masterminds might be a little too heavy. It might be too heavy, but I would recommend, if Masterminds is too much, because I can see it being a possibility, but then I mean, textually, it may be too difficult. But I would recommend Anything Else by Gordon Corman, and I'll type his name in the chat. 'cause I don't know if, um, he writes a lot of, um he writes a lot of, like, adventure stuff, which is really, really good that I know that a lot of kids that I've worked with have enjoyed it. There's this other kid, I think his name is no, 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 no. No, it's not Ellie Jakes. I'm gonna have to think about that one. I thought his name was Ellie Jakes, but it's not Ellie Jakes. But yeah, Gordon Corman does write some adventure books that are really, really good. Goosebumps is always good. Goosebumps is definitely targeted towards a second to fourth grade reading level. So if you're looking for that, I am going through a shelf in my mind. I don't know if the 13 story, I'm trying not to give you anything that would be too long, but the 13th story treehouse might be okay with your your 8-year-old, might not be okay. Um, but it's such a good story, and I wonder if that's one that you can read. Anything by the guy who wrote Captain Underpants, he's good. He has outside of Captain Underpants, he also wrote the Ricky Ricardo books, which I've seen a lot of kids within that age group really enjoy. Um, you can also check out The Wild Robot by Peter Brown is a good series. Anything by Andrew Clements is good. So like Frindle, um, what's the one the girl with the newspaper? I think it was called the school story. I think those are good. Kate D. Camillo, I think that's how you say her last name. She wrote The Tales of Despero, which is a really good one as well. Um, Bunnicula is a good one. Anything by Grace Lynn is pretty good. I'm a huge fan of Grace Lynn. Um, and if you want something a little bit maybe more so on the classic side, maybe E.B. White, so Stuart Little, Charlotte's Web, those are all good books as well. Um, I hope that wasn't too much. That might have been a lot, uh, a lot to keep up with. Yes, send me pictures, please, 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 because she's flying through the stuff that I have. Okay, now back to what I was saying. Where's Johnny? Do not come for me. Do not come for my love of Romeo and Juliet. Okay? Listen, I appreciate Romeo and Juliet. I know it has its flaws. I know that it has issues and that it's not Shakespeare's best work. But Romeo and Juliet, I don't know. I just really, really enjoy it. It's great. Um, and I think that my love of, because when I was reading it, I think I read it too young. I read it when, I think it was like 8th grade. I couldn't really grasp it. I mean, I'm an adult now, and I know that my experience reading it that young was just not good. but to help me understand it, I watched the Leonardo DiCaprio adaptation with Claire Danes. It was so good. It was so good. Yes, yes, the Everest and the Island series by Gordon Corman. Um, I read Gordon Corman's The Mastermind trilogy, and I did that on audio, and it had a full cast to it, and definitely one of the best middle grade science fiction books that I've ever read. I have not picked up his other stuff, but he's a fan favorite amongst some of the kids. They really, really like Gordon Corman. Yeah, Frindle is great. Andrew Clements is great, and Andrew Clements definitely has some great illustrations in those books that are super appreciated. Yeah, a lot of people like Bunnicula. It's a good one. Okay, who cares? All right. Yeah, it's insta love gone wrong, completely wrong, but you can't like it's just so poetic. It's just it's so beautiful. And I'm like that type of person who reads Romeo and Juliet, and every time I read it, I expect the ending to be different, knowing that both of them are going to die. And every time I'm like, no, if you just wait one more second. Yes, I did see that. I did see that Dana L. Davis is coming out with one, and I am excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to read that. I think that it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good. I do too. She did such a good job in that movie. I think her and Leonardo had such good chemistry. Um, Supposedly yes, but I don't think about that because I don't think they ever say it on page. Um, they don't ever say it on page. I don't know how people come up with the ages or how they figured out the ages, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I just think that um, the tragedy behind it is what makes it so sad. It does get a bad rep because it's required reading. It really does. All right, y'all. Okay, so she was under 14. He was 16, 17. Oh, they say Juliet's page on age. See, it's been a minute since I read it. I have not read Julius Caesar at all. I've read Othello, Hamlet, and Romeo and Juliet. Othello had my blood boiling, boiling. Oh my gosh, Othello had my blood just hot. I don't know if I would ever read that one again. Chloe, did you go to sleep? Like, did you get to rest or sleep in? I think we ruin a lot of classics for kids because of that. I think classics are exposed to kids at too young of an age because there are classics that I did not truly understand until I got older. I the first time I read The Color Purple, I was 16. I was 16 the first time I read The Color Purple. Do y'all think at 16 that I knew what I was reading? I didn't have the emotional and mental capacity, I think, to understand. Um, on a surface level, yeah. I mean, general, but I mean like the the implications of that novel, I didn't get it. Like a lot of people forget that The Color Purple is has has huge queer representation in it, like hugely, and it is very important to the novel. And I would have never picked up on that. I would have never picked up on that as at 16. And I'm not saying that 16-year-olds don't have the capacity to be analytical. I don't want that to, but I don't think that I think there's just some things with experience and time you understand better. And I think that classics ruin the reading experience for a lot of teenagers, a lot. Jason Reynolds had made a good point when he spoke when I saw him in February, and he was saying, how are you going to teach? And he was just using as example, like working with Black students in particular. How are you going to tell, and he was using himself as an example, how are you going to tell Black boys to read um damn, what's the name of the classic with the whale in the boat? Moby Dick. How are you gonna tell a bunch of Black boys to read Moby Dick, which is about a man on a boat and a whale, and none of them have left their neighborhoods? It just, the experiences like don't match with what you're telling them to read. And then a lot of kids that are reading these books are not on grade level. They cannot read those books. They literally cannot read those books, let alone comprehend what they're reading. And it not only makes people hate classics, it makes people hate reading. And it's super unfortunate that that's the way that it works. But that is what that is the way that it works. Um, it is. Some of that require, you're right. It is. It's above grade level. And defeats it defeats kids, and it's horrible to see kids go through that, where they're forcing themselves to have to read something that they don't even really get. Somebody had made a comment, isn't The Color Purple more of adult? Yeah, but I was in an honors class. That's how I ended up reading it. Was in an honors class. Oh, y'all got 2 minutes, and it's time for me to go to bed. 2 minutes. I feel like I'm doing the final call at a club. Final call, final questions, anything? Oh, I read The Kite Runner in high school, and it tore me up too. It tore me up. Mm, I think I liked Pride and Prejudice when I was in high school, but I don't think I appreciated it until I became an adult. Bye, Lala. Yeah, yeah, it is to foster discussion, but it's too much for kids at that age. You're right. Thank goodness for Spark Notes because I was using them. I was using them. Josh, go to sleep. Go to sleep. We'll be doing this once a week. Go to sleep. All right, y'all. Tammy bargained for y'all's 5 minutes, and your 5 minutes are up. Tammy deserves all the love for getting you those extra 5 minutes. Make sure you go to her channel and subscribe and like and comment on her videos because she was the real G for getting y'all those 5 minutes. All right, y'all. I am headed out. I need to sleep. I can't be sleep deprived and take care of a child and work full time. So, um, yes, Tammy is great. Show Tammy all of the love. Shameless plug. Good night, good night, good night. I will see y'all next week.